everybody. This is just a short video to talk about subject-verb agreement and similes and metaphors and everything you need for that Grammar 3.1 assignment. I'm going to go ahead and turn my video camera off because it's taking up a whole lot of bandwidth, and we're just going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing we always talk about is context clues, because you know you're going to see a couple of these on your Unit 3 test. We have my wealthy aunt who enjoys flaunting her wealth always wears an ostentatious diamond necklace. So what does ostentatious mean? Is it A, unimpressive, B, intended to attract notice, C, small or petite, or D, dirty? Go ahead, look back at that sentence, look for some context clues, pause the video as you need to so you have some time to think. Well, we know if we are looking at a wealthy aunt, we know she enjoys flaunting her wealth or showing her wealth off, and it says that she always wears a diamond necklace. All these things should help you figure out, first of all, we're not talking about dirty, and we're not talking about unimpressive. And so you can immediately narrow it down to B or C. And I hope by the time you have done that, you have realized B, intended to attract notice, is what ostentatious means. All right, so the purpose of this video is to talk verb tense. And verbs are one of those frustrating things because for every rule there is an exception. So to start off, to make sure we're kind of on the same page, when we're talking verbs, we have two types. We can either have regular verbs, which follows a standard pattern, or we can have irregular verbs, which means that it breaks the pattern and it does its own thing. And what you're going to notice is, as you're going through verbs and their patterns, when you take a verb and you move it into past tense, if it is regular, it is going to just add an ed. So I bake a cake today, I baked a cake yesterday. I behave well today, I behaved well yesterday. I borrow something now, I borrowed something yesterday. So that ability to add the ed and change nothing else lets you know you have a regular verb. You can almost not think about it. You can just know immediately ed means that it's a regular verb. On the other hand, an irregular verb is going to change its spelling, sometimes even its pronunciation completely. So I awake today, I awoke yesterday. I begin today, I began yesterday. I bite today, I bit yesterday. That's a little weird sentence, but you can see how we're still following a verb. We still can see what it means, but we're changing its spelling, we're changing its pronunciation. That's what makes it irregular. Now, the reason why this can be so frustrating is because you have just grown up learning this through trial and error, and most of us don't remember back to when we were 1 and 2 and trying to figure out the correct words to use at the correct times. But now as we start dissecting sentences and trying to figure out what's working right, what needs to be revised, this is where you start kind of questioning everything you know to be true. So the first thing I want you to do are look at these sentences and try to figure out, is it regular or is it irregular? Which means if you change its tense from past to present or present to past, are you changing its spelling or are you only adding an ed? Go ahead and pause the video, work through these 5, and then I'll show you the answers next. All right, here are your answers. Ran is irregular, jumped is regular. Did you see that ed? Did you notice? Cried is irregular, beat is irregular, and drink is irregular. All right, the next thing you have to figure out is, once you have figured out whether something is a regular or irregular verb, that then lets you move forward and know what rules you can play with next. So for this video, we are only looking at regular verbs. And when you have regular verbs, you can break them into 3 simple categories. So when you're using this verb, you can either use it as simple present, which means the action, right, because verbs show action. the action is happening right now. We could be using a regular verb in the simple past form, which means that action is happening in the past. Or we can use a verb in simple future form, which means that action will be happening in the future. And if you look at the examples here, again, it's broken down into a pattern. That's why we're talking regular verbs. So in simple present, we have just the verb, just the word. I jumped today, I played today, I yelled today. If we move those verbs into past tense, now all we have to do is add an ed in order to show it's in past tense. I jumped yesterday, I played yesterday, I yelled yesterday. And then if we want to use that same verb but talk about actions in the future, all we do is add the word will. I will jump tomorrow. I will play tomorrow. I will yell tomorrow. And so, as weird as grammar can be, there are some simple truths that let us boil it down to specific red flag indicators. Simple present tense is just the simple word. Simple past tense will always add an ed. And simple future tense will always add will before the verb. So go and look at these 6 sentences and try to figure out what simple verb tense is being used. We're going to do the first one together, and that'll leave 5 for you to practice on your own. But the girls will play with their dolls in their room. When you go through this, the girls is our subject. What are they going to do? They will play. There's our verb with their dolls in their room. So when we look at this, we have play, which looks like a regular verb, but we have the word will in front of it. And so I hope you see will and you immediately go, ah, this is simple future. And that's it, simple future. So go ahead and look 2 through 6, pause the video, and see which ones you can figure out. I'll show you the answers next. All right, we have walked with an ed, that makes it simple past. We have cooks, just the plain verb, so we're talking simple present. We have looked with an ed, we're talking simple past. We have will jump, and so we're looking at simple future. And we have laugh, which is simple present. All right, you're not going to have to do this with your grammar homework this week, but I want you to be aware of, although we do have simple past, simple present, and simple future verbs, we also can have perfect past, perfect present, and perfect future verbs. And this has to do with when the action is going to take place, because sometimes we can't pinpoint exactly. It's going to be kind of an area of time that the action can occur. I know it's weird and vague, but you use this in your speech. Just very few of us sit down and think, let me use perfect past tense before I make my sentence. So perfect tense is a tense that's showing things that have already taken place, but you don't know exactly when. So you can't boil it down to simple past, simple present, simple future. It's more of an area of time. Present perfect refers to an action that began in the past but was completed with or before the present or unspecific time of the past. So a little vague. Here's the part you need to know. If your verb is using present perfect tense, you are going to either have has or have plus the verb with an ed. And so you can almost ignore the sentence completely, look for has or have, look for the verb with ed, and know immediately it's present perfect tense. I have worked on this homework for forever. I hope that's not true for you, but you can see have before the verb, you can see the verb work, you can see the ed, and so your brain can immediately say present perfect tense. No one has watched this movie with me before. Again, we have the word has, we have the verb with an ed, we can immediately say this is present perfect tense. Past past perfect follows a similar pattern. It is going to have the word had plus the verb plus ed. So Vicky had looked everywhere for tickets to the opening game. You can see your had, you can see your verb, you can see your ed. The next example shows it to you with an irregular verb. I wanted to sneak some in so you could kind of see it. It's following that same pattern, but since irregular verbs don't add eds, that's what kind of masks it to make it a little harder to catch. Future perfect is going to have either the word will or shall. It's going to have the word have, and it's going to have the verb with the ed. Most of the sentences we put together, we use will. Technically, you could have shall in there, and it would also be future perfect. But let's look at the example. By Christmas, I will have received my 1-year bonus for working. We have will, we have, we have the verb with an ed. It is future perfect tense. I will have finished this homework before dinner tonight. We have will, we have, we have the verb with an ed. It is future perfect tense. All right, like I said, you're not going to do sentences like this for your grammar assignment today, but I want to make sure you can kind of see this so you don't get thrown off as you're looking at other sentences out in the wild. So we've got 6 sentences. You can pause the video and work through them to try to figure out if it is perfect past, perfect present, or perfect future. We'll do number 1 together, and that will let you do 2 through 6 on your own. I will have received 48 credit hours by the end of this semester. So I is my subject. What is I doing? Let me see if I can get my line working, will have received. We have will, we have, we have the verb with an ed. Look back at your notes. I hope you remember that this is future perfect tense. All right, you go through and work 2 through 6. Pause the video so you can get your answers, and then the answers are coming next. All right, 2, we have has played, that's present perfect. We have had skipped, that's past perfect. We have had hoped, that's past perfect. We have will have paid, that's future perfect. And have heard, that would be present perfect. You'll notice number 6 was a tough one. It was an irregular verb. So you had your have, you didn't have your ed because that verb isn't regular. All right, last piece, similes and metaphors. So in our 988 standards, you're supposed to go through figurative language, and I'm breaking 2 up now, and we'll do 2 in the next section. The similes and metaphors are the first 2 we need to talk about. They are ways that in writing you can describe 2 unlike things in order to provide more description. And so similes and metaphors are very, very similar. However, when you're building a simile, you must use the word like or as. When you're using a metaphor, you are not using the word like or as. That's the only difference between the 2. So if I say my sister is like an angel, what I'm doing is I'm comparing 2 unlike things. I'm comparing, I need my line again. I'm comparing my sister to an angel. And you're walking downstairs, you're walking to the kitchen to get a bowl of cereal. You don't see your sister and go, ooh, an angel. I mean my sister. Those are 2 very different things. But by comparing them, using that word like, which makes it a simile, what we're doing is we are describing how wonderful our sister is. You see how that can work in writing? You don't have to say my sister is wonderful. You could say my sister is like an angel, and the reader goes, ooh, she's wonderful. Now to turn this simile into a metaphor, all you do is take out like. You say it as a blunt statement. My sister is an angel. Again, we're comparing 2 things that are not similar, our sister to an angel. We literally would not confuse those 2. But by making it a very strong, simple statement, we are profoundly describing our sister so that the reader goes, I wish I could meet her one day. She sounds wonderful. And the only difference is that use of like. A simile will use like or as to compare the two things. A metaphor will not. So go through our examples 1 through 5. Figure out what two unlike things are being described, and then identify whether or not you're using a simile or a metaphor to create that piece of figurative language. Pause the video, go through them, and we'll review the answers next. All right, the man is an ogre. We have no like, we have no as, but we are describing two unlike things, a man and an ogre, and so we have a metaphor. The football player is like a giant. We are comparing a football player to a giant. We are using that word like, and so we have a simile in question number 2. My abs are hard as a rock. We are comparing our abs to a rock, and we are using the word as. Did you notice? It's a little sneaky. If you use like or as, you have got a simile. Next, we have the girl is a bright star. We're comparing girl to a bright star, two very different things. No like, no as, it's a metaphor. And then last, we have he is quick as a cat. We are comparing whoever he is to a cat. We are using the word as. We have got a simile going on in question number 5. That's everything I've got for you. If you have any questions, please just reach out and email me. I hope that you are having a great week, and I will have another video soon.